So there was a video that I did a little while back, and I mentioned that I used a modified camera rig that allowed me to film a close-up of my hands, kind of follow the movement of my hands. And that's what I'm going to be going over in this video, just how I built that camera rig. I'm Andrew Joseph Keith. I'm an artist and sculptor, and one of the fun things about being an artist and sculptor is you kind of get the chance to be a problem solver and try to make things work with whatever materials you have at hand. I wanted to get some more creative shots with the camera, shots that were following my hands, where I could be going down, grabbing the clay, putting it up, and putting it onto the armature, doing whatever I'm doing with the camera focused on that action. So that's what I made this for. And so what this allows me to do, and it does help if you have you can put your phone on this type of a rig or whatever you have, but it does help if you have a screen that can be adjusted a little bit, because then I can look up at the screen to get it wherever I need, whatever I'm doing, whether I'm like tying a knot or something else. I can have it very focused in on that action on my fingers, what my fingers are doing. Let's say that I was like examining something. This is a bone that we found in the yard. But let's say that I'm like looking at it, but I want it to be able to like track with my hands as I'm working. This is kind of a simple way to do that, so that the background's kind of moving, but you're very focused in on whatever you're holding, whatever you're grabbing. For me, most of the time it would be sculpting, what I'm sculpting. But let's say that you want somebody, just a creative shot where somebody's examining something really close up by hands, and it's just following them as they're like walking or they're nervous or something. And it's cool because the light can be changing and the background and stuff can be changing, but you're very focused in on whatever you're holding. And that's what I like about this shot. So that's what it does. Fairly simple rig. It's just PVC, some PVC connections and pipe. And I've left it all loose so that I can take it apart and change anything if I want. If I want to shorten this, if I'm using a different type of lens or something, I want to get a little bit closer, I can just switch out the pipe. Let me zoom in a little bit and I can show you guys how to build it. Pretty much the only piece that you need to build is this right here. So this is just an adapter to be able to put the camera, or if you have some of these quick release adapters, you can also just put that onto your camera, and then the bottom adapter parts just so that can click in. But I'll just talk about this basic adapter. Just all we want to do is adapt from the 1/4 inch screw that's at the bottom of your camera that you're able to screw in, and then just to be able to adapt that to PVC. That's really all we need for this one. And so I'm just going to walk through and explain how I built this. Here's another version of the same concept. This one is threaded so that it can go into a threaded portion, but then it also allows you to adapt to PVC. And I don't know if you can see in there, but there is a bolt, and then I've just epoxied it down. I have a little piece of floor sample, but you could also use wood or something else. I liked this floor sample just because it had kind of this underlayment sponge, and that allowed me to tighten the camera down when I twisted the camera on. What I did for this one was I cut off a small section of PVC, this section right here. I drilled the hole all the way through so that a nail could go in. That's what this is. That just makes it easier to turn and twist. So I just drilled a hole large enough for a nail, put a nail in, and that gives me a little bit control if I have to pull this, like if it gets stuck or something and I need to pull it out. I don't want to have to pull by this part or by the camera, so I can just pull with this nail, or I can twist with the nail, and it just gives me a little bit more control. That's why I added that in. And then this part is just a bolt. I try to save bolts that are the right size. Actually, I think this one's too small, so that would not be the right one. But if you have little bolts that are that 1/4 inch, and you can just test to see if it'll screw into the bottom of your camera or onto an adapter, one of those adapters that holds your phone. You can also do that. So I cut out a little piece of flooring. These were free flooring samples that I got from Home Depot, I think. But sometimes they'll have like flooring samples that you can take. So that's what this part is. But like I was saying, you can use a little piece of plywood or something else if you don't have that flooring sample. I do like that there's a little bit of sponge on this. And And then I drilled a hole the size of the bolt that I needed to attach, and I pushed the bolt through. We want to do that about a little bit under a centimeter, or like a quarter inch or less than a half inch. We don't want it to be too long because we want the camera to kind of snug up against this as we twist it in. Then I turned it upside down. With that bolt, I put the PVC over top of the bolt, and then I poured some 5-minute epoxy. You can see that's where it is. And then I would move things around to make sure that that epoxy went all the way around. Here you can see I let some of the epoxy spill on the outside just to give it some added support. So I lifted it up, let it spill out, and then pushed it back down. And then that 5-minute epoxy cured. That's how I was able to make this part right here. So really, that's probably the only thing you need to make, and then you can just use PVC adapters and connecting pieces to make whatever type of rig that you want once you have this. Just to show you an example of another type of camera rig that I built, so I'm going to attach that piece back into the camera, and then I can pull this down, tighten it into place using that nail. There we go. And then this can be like a camera stabilizing rig, just to give some more stability and kind of push it in towards your body. It was something that I built just kind of for fun and because I thought it was cool. And I saw these like camera rigs that were really expensive, and I was like, well, I just have some PVC and I think I could build something that would be fun. And then if you wanted to hold like a microphone or something else, you can make those adapters. So let's go over specifically this camera rig that we're talking about. So basically you could get away with just this T-joint right here, a T-joint, and then whatever length of section of PVC you want. And what I would do is I would check to see where the focal point is, and then let's say that the focal point is right here. This is a 50 millimeter, so it's on a micro four thirds, so the focal point is actually a little bit farther out here. But let's say that it was right here, the focal point, and then I would cut it that length, and then I can actually put my pinky in right here if I need to, and that just allows me to control the rig, make sure that I have something that it's grabbing onto. This pinky thing worked pretty well to just kind of keep your hand in the same position so that it doesn't get out of focus, because the beauty of this shot is you can really be focused in and everything outside can be really blurry and you can be moving around and it just focused in tight on whatever you're working on. So you can do that with a pinky, or you can do the longer section like I showed earlier. Longer section, and then you can just hold along the section of pipe just like I was doing earlier. Just hold there, and then you just get like the top fingers. And if you want more of your hand, you can use the hand that's not holding it and show more as if you're not tied to the camera rig, even though you are. You could also maybe tie something to the wrist and do it that way, but I found just holding it gave me a nice amount of control, and I could do whatever I was doing. In my case, usually it's sculpting, but whatever you're doing that you want to really have a tight, close, interesting camera angle. Some modifications that I made here on this back side is I would take sections of the pipe just to use less adapters because they're more expensive. A lot of these are secondhand too. But you can heat this up and you can just bend it into whatever shape you want. And so I bended some of these handles, and then I used that hockey tape over top for this black area. And I liked to do with a couple of T adapters, put a handle going out this way and a handle going back. If I want to have it up against my shoulder, if I only have one handle, it's kind of loose in space and the camera will rotate this way. It can be interesting, but you probably want to have more control over it. And so with two, I can put, I could put one against my chest or over here, and then have one against my chin or shoulder, or put them against my body just so that I have more control. It's not twisting or moving around. It's a little bit more secure in that area. And then I can do the same thing where I'm sculpting. Now you look kind of ridiculous if you're filming outside of this, but this is really to get those tight close-up shots. Make people think, oh, how did he get that? He must have had the camera tied to his arm somehow or something like that. And basically that is what it is you're just tying it in. And so I really like these T-joints. This one's, I think, entirely made out of just T-joints, pieces that I've bent, some pieces that I've just measured and cut. The sections where T-joints come together, I think you can cut like 3 inches, and it goes 1.5 inches into each piece of the joint. and that works great. Once you have this adapter, you can also get these adjustable ball heads that you can move around, so you could have the camera on top and then you can adjust this. This one that I got was a cheap one and it's pretty flimsy, so you probably couldn't hold a lot of weight and it might make the camera a little bit unstable, but you can get heavier duty versions of these ball heads, and that way you can have a little bit more control over where the camera is pointing. If you just have it like this, then there's not really an ability to tilt. You can move the camera from side to side, but you can't really go up and down. So you're kind of fixed in that position. But if you need to, you could build another handle of PVC if you need to get your hand up a little bit higher, or you can, you know, build out the PVC a little bit lower so you can adjust the rig that way if you need to. I just like this concept just because it's kind of like playing. It's just fun to mess with PVC. It reminds me of when I was a kid and you'd make like those marshmallow guns out of PVC that you could just put the little marshmallows and then blow and it shoots the marshmallows out. Maybe this is more of like a play thing, but it doesn't cost that much, and I thought it was a clever solution just to get a couple more interesting camera angles for some of the stuff that I do as an online instructor, as somebody that makes videos teaching people how to sculpt. Sometimes it's nice to have these fun, interesting camera angles. I don't use it as much as I should. I should probably try to incorporate it more into different videos. If you're using it with your pinky guided, then I recommend sanding down the inside part just so that it's a little bit softer. When you cut that PVC, it can leave a sharp edge, and so I would sand it down, make it a little bit more comfortable for the pinky to be in there. Kind of your pinky holding it in place can get sore. So it's not maybe something that you would use for like an hour-long video, but for just a clip here and there, I think it's a fun and interesting way to get an angle that you don't see every day. And there's something about just making your own camera rig that's really fun. All right, well, hopefully that explanation makes sense on how to build these. If you're interested in sculpting, my sculpting courses are available. There's links in the description for those. And if you'd like to support, you can support me over on Patreon. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, or any ways that you think that these could be improved. I'd be very curious to hear about that. If you like this kind of building stuff, you might like the video that I did on building stop motion puppets using Dollar Tree materials like rubber bands and popsicle sticks and those types of things. And so that one is fun. I also have videos on building wire armatures and a bunch of sculpting stuff. And so if you're interested in that, definitely check that stuff out. Thank you guys for watching. Stay creative, stay productive, and hopefully I'll see you again soon in another video.